Okay, so this is obviously not my regular type of content, but have you guys seen this video?
Hinges.
Okay, so these people are asking a ghost in their house to close the door for them.
Yes.
Can you close the door? Do you please?
All right, TikTok, here's our door.
Okay, so hold on here. It says the ghost's favorite door, but hold on. Why did I read color? I read color. Yeah, here's my comment. But then look, there's over 100 comments of people who also read the ghost's favorite color. Okay, so is this a different timeline? What is this? Or there's this guy right here who says, I think we're all dyslexic. Okay, since so many people accidentally read the ghost's favorite color, they asked the ghost what its favorite color is.
Which one of these is your favorite color? We gave you the whole rainbow to sort through.
Plus a couple extras.
My favorite color is orange.
All right, the ghost likes blue. But let's talk about this a little. Whether you believe this family or not, let's explore the possibility of what's really happening here. So we're going to bring it back to good old Dolores Cannon from the book Between Death and Life and jump right here to chapter 11, Ghosts and Poltergeists. Dolores asks for an explanation about ghosts and poltergeists. As we know, Dolores does regressive hypnosis, and all of her books are transcripts of hypnosis sessions. So the higher self and beings that are talking through the client are where these answers are coming from. And it says, for we could be considered one if we were to cause furniture to float and switches to go on and off. This terminology is simply applied to those spirit entities who have their consciousness focused on such a degree that they can cause manifestations on the physical plane. Are they trying to convey a message when they do these things? Not necessarily. Some simply enjoy the amusement, thus are entertaining themselves. Dolores says, I'm thinking it's an unenlightened spirit who would want to play games like this. They answer, there's always the playing of games, on that side as well as our side. Then it goes on to say that poltergeists is just a term for any spirit that is able to manipulate physical objects. Dolores says, but they can frighten people. And they say, well, people can frighten them too. And she asks for more clarification on ghosts. They say that many ghosts are nothing more than the projection of the energies of the individual who is seeing the apparition. The individuals themselves are projecting these energies, which would cause perhaps the reflections of their own former lives or awareness of the spirit plane. And they are projecting that awareness down to a physical level. But we do not wish to convey that all ghosts are just projection. However, integrate this into your awareness, that this is one of the possibilities. Now I want to point out something that Michael Talbot said. You might remember him from the Earthshift series. He's the author of the Holographic universe, where he breaks down quantum theories about the universe being a hologram and our brains being a tuner of the hologram. There's two parts to this interview. I highly suggest you watch both of them. But in one part, he talks about poltergeists because he experienced a poltergeist since he was 5 years old. And as he got a better understanding of the universe, of the hologram, of quantum physics, he started to realize that these poltergeists were mirroring him and that they were in fact a projection of his own emotion. So if he was in a playful mood, the poltergeist would be playful. If he was angry, it would knock something off the table. I wonder if the family notices that same pattern. So we're finally going to talk about ghosts because a lot of you have been asking. And it's the perfect time because we just went over soul division, how part of you stays in the spirit world and part of you comes to earth. If you haven't, make sure you go back and watch that part. And if you haven't checked out the jkultra store, get your women who follow community guidelines rarely make history tea. This information is coming from Destiny of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. In the last part, we talked about soul division, and tagging on to that, we're going to take a look at case 15. Okay, so in this part, it says that this guy only took 25% of his entire soul energy because he wanted to live 2 lives at the same time. So he only gave himself 25% for this life. But then when he passed away, because he only had 25% of his soul there, he got stuck as a ghost for a bit, because when it came time to cross over and come back to the spirit world, he didn't have enough soul energy to recognize what was happening. So Dr. Newton says that it had been many years before he ever came across a client who had been a ghost after one of their past lives. He says it's extremely rare, and that he doesn't count being a ghost someone who stays around for several months, because he says most souls will stay around for several months to make sure that the people around are okay, if people are grieving. So Dr. Newton also talks about some other cases from the perspective of the ghost, where he says that sometimes they're trying to make the person feel their presence so that the person understands that they're not really gone. And once that person can feel their presence, they feel a bit of relief, like, oh, I know that they're still around me. And then the soul can leave. So we're also going to take a look at Dolores' book, Between Death and Life by Dolores Cannon. Now there is so much about ghosts in here. More on that in the next part. She totally explains another level of what's happening with ghosts that is mind-blowing. I do want to touch on this topic of a soul having to hang around to make sure that people are okay. Because Dolores confirms that sometimes people become ghosts because the people around them are grieving so badly. Grief has its place, but excessive grieving is both bad for the person doing it and the person that they are grieving about. Now let's go back to Dr. Michael Newton. He talks about the difference in time. Because they're not in the human experience, they're not experiencing time the way we do. So 4 years felt like a couple weeks. And then he gives another example where 400 years could feel like 40 days. So it's okay when they hang around a little bit to make sure that people are okay. Back to Dolores, she asks, oh, is this why some spirits will contact us through a medium and give the advice that they're okay not to grieve for them? And the answer is yes, because excessive grief can hold you back from developing your own karma. They already know that they're going to see you again, that you need to continue your own growth. And part of this is motivated by the idea that you should advance your karma because both of you are going to be in the next life together. It's like okay, there's so much more to say about ghosts. So in the last part, we talked more about ghosts who are staying because of grief. So they know they've passed, but they feel like they need to stay to support or help. Let's talk about the more common idea of ghosts, which is they don't know they've passed. This information is coming from Dolores Cannon, Between Death and Life. This chapter is super interesting, and in the caption of this video, I'm gonna link a video that I've already done about the poltergeists, because we know that Hamley family, where they like interact with a ghost on TikTok. In the middle of my alien series, you can see I have 2 videos about that, and I go more into the poltergeists, which is ghosts that can physically move objects. That'll be a little play button below in the caption. Okay, so ghosts are basically spiritually sleepwalking. On the spirit plane, it appears that they are sleepwalking for what can appear to be a very long time. Time to you is different than earthbound spirits. Laura says, are they here because they're confused? Sometimes it's because they misjudged the amount of time the lesson would take. Sometimes people thought that they would be on Earth longer, so it takes them some time to readjust. They tend to remain in areas that they were familiar with because they are trying to figure out what's going on, much like sleepwalking. Do they know they've passed? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Many times yes. Some don't know that they've passed and are still trying to participate in physical activities. Some don't realize that they cannot be perceived by people around them. But eventually they realize and they finish their transition. Other times they might have done something to negatively impact their karma, and they're afraid to re-enter the spirit world. Sometimes out of fear, they try to stay close to the physical plane. Now here's where it gets interesting. By the consciousness of this soul trying to stay in the physical plane, they're projecting the image of the familiar place. Maybe the house they used to live, the place that they died. Because they're projecting that place with their consciousness, it echoes to the actual physical place that they're projecting. This is what explains most ghost phenomena. Dolores is like, wait, it's not a spirit, it's an echo of a spirit? Yes, but it's more like if a ghost shows up in a house that you just moved into, the consciousness of the person who used to live there is creating a mental construct of that house that it's hyper fixated on. They're seeing themselves in the house. It creates an echo of them, the person who is currently in the house, that could be sensitive to that energy. Dolores is like, what about when people see ghosts interacting then? They say the consciousness of a person who's crossed over sometimes hyper fixate and project a mental construct of an event that happened. Then Dolores asks, what about people people who get messages from loved ones who have passed away. Sometimes their guide is trying to help them, so they contact loved ones who can reach them. Like we said in the last part, those loved ones are going to have a future life with you. It's also an incentive for them to get involved to help you while you're still incarnated. However, it still is the same echo concept. So the loved one will project the mental construct of the familiar place that you had with them, and then that echoes to that physical place. In this video that's linked here, it talks about sometimes ghosts are just our own feelings getting projected